Namaste everyone. This is Ritika Jaiswal, your energy healer. I welcome you all in the book study of Autobiography of a Yogi, day 5. And today we'll be covering chapter 4 of Autobiography of a Yogi. So let's get started. So this is chapter 4, my interrupted flight towards the Himalayas. So, as the caption already says, that he was trying to go to the Himalayas, but his trip was interrupted. So, let us begin this chapter. Leave your classroom on some trifling pretext and engage a hackney carriage. Stop in the lane where no one in my house can see you. These were my final instruction to Amar Mittar, a high school friend who planned to accompany me to the Himalayas. We had chosen the following days for our flight. Precautions were necessary as Ananta exercised a vigilant eye. He was determined to foil the plan to escape which he suspected were uppermost in my mind. The amulet like spiritual east was silently at work within me amidst the Himalayan snows. I hope to find the master whose face often appeared to me in visions. The family was living now in Calcutta, where father had been permanently transferred. Following the patriarchal Indian custom, Ananta had brought his bride to live in our home, now at 4 Gurpa Road. There, in a small attic room, I engaged in daily meditation and prepared my mind for the divine search. The memorable morning, arriving with inauspicious rain, hearing the wheels of Amar carriage in the road, I hastily tied together a blanket, a pair of sandals, Lahiri Mahasaya's picture, a copy of Bhagavad Gita, a string of prayer beads, and 2 loin cloths. This bundle I threw from third story window. I ran down the steps and passed my uncle buying fish at door. So he had already prepared his one of his friend Amar Mittar, uh, and he planned to go with him to the Himalayas. So they were currently staying in Calcutta, where his brother Ananta has brought his bride over there. Yeah. And yes. Yeah. And so as we had covered in the other earlier chapter, that his mother has given an amulet to him. So after receiving that amulet, he felt like it was a spiritual ease. It accelerated his process of spiritual growth. And in his image, in his visions, he always had an image of a guru. So that image was, you can say, of a spiritual guru who will be guiding him in this path. So, in the quest of finding him, he planned to leave for Himalayas, and he convinced one of his friend. He took his pair of sandals, Lahiri Masa picture, copy of Bhagavad Gita, a string of prayer beads, and 2 loin cloths. So let's move ahead. What in excitement he gazed his gaze roved suspiciously over my person. I gave him non-committal smile and walked to the lane Retrieving my bundle, I joined Amar with conspiratorial caution. We drove to Chandni Chowk, a merchandise center. For months, we had been saving our tiffin money to buy English clothes. Knowing that my clever brother could easily play the part of detective, we thought to outwit him by European garb. So earlier also we have seen like his elder brother Ananta had a hint of him flying away from the house, running away from the house. So what he had done, he had saved money to change their clothes, wear English clothes, so that his brother cannot catch them. On the way to the station, we stopped for my cousin Jotin Ghosh, whom I called Jatinda. He was a new convert longing for a guru in the Himalayas. So one of his cousin was also interested in finding a guru in the Himalayas. We donned the new suit we had in readiness. Well camouflaged, we hopped. A deep elation possessed our hearts. All we need now are canvas shoes. I led my companion to shop displaying rubber soled footwear, articles of leather, gotten only through the slaughter of animals, must be absent on this holy trip. I halted on the streets to remove the leather cover from my Bhagavad Gita and leather straps from my English made Sola Topi helmet. At the station, we bought tickets to Bardwan, where we plan to transfer for Haridwar in the Himalayan foothills. As soon as the train, uh, as soon as the train, like ourselves, was in flight, I gave utterance to a few of my glorious anticipation. Just imagine, I ejaculated, we shall be initiated by masters and experience the trance of cosmic consciousness. Our flesh will be charged with such magnetism that wild animals of Himalayas will come tamely near us. Tigers will be no more than meek house cat awaiting our caresses. So, while they were flying, while they were going for the trip, so, in his mind, he had this excitement. Over here, I can say, since the first chapter, we are seeing that, it is over glamorized in his head. Like spiritual gurus are like this. This is how disciple and guru relationship is. And once they'll get this, you know, uh, experience this cosmic consciousness, they will become very magnetic, and all the wild animals will come taming. Like a meek house cat, tigers will come like meek house cat towards them. This remark, picturing a prospect I considered entracing both metamorphically and literally, brought an enthusiastic smile from Amar. But Jatinda averted his gaze, directing it through the window of at the scampering landscape. So Amar was excited, enthusiastic, and Jatinda just looked outside the window, the view. Then he said, let the money be divided in three portions. Jatinda broke the silence with this suggestion. Each of us should buy his own ticket at Bardwan. Thus, no one at station will surmise that we are running away together. I unsuspectingly agreed. At dusk, our train stopped at Bardwan. Jatinda entered the ticket office. Amar and I sat on the platform. We waited 15 minutes, then made unavailing queries. Searching in all directions, we shouted Jatinda's name with urgency of fright, but he had faded into dark, unknown surrounding the little station. So Jatinda went to take the tickets, and after 15 minutes, they said like it has been quite late. They went to find him, but he was not there. I was completely unnerved, shocked to a peculiar numbness, that God would countenance this depressing episode. The romantic occasion of my first carefully planned flight after him was cruelly marred. Amar, we must return home. I was weeping like a child. Jatinda, callous departure is an ill omen. This trip is doomed to failure. So he's saying that we are not able to find Jatinda, and this is a bad omen. This is a negative sign. So we should drop this trip. Is this your love for the Lord? Can't you stand the little test of treacherous companion? Through Amar's suggestion of a divine test, my heart steadied itself. So he was all frightened, but his friend said, "Don't you think it is a little test? And this is your love for God is only this much. That little test will come, and you'll just cancel your going." We refreshed ourselves with famous Bardwan sweet meats, Sita Bhog, food of goddess, and motichur nuggets of sweet pearls. In few hours, these were all the sweets name. In a few hours, we entrained for Haridwar via Bareilly, changing trains at Mughal Sarai. All these names are which were earlier. There are some modification in the names. Currently, these places' names are little modified in spelling as well. We discussed a vital matter as we waited on the platform. Amar, we may soon be closely questioned by railroad officials. I am not underrating my brother's ingenuity. No matter what the outcome, I will not speak untruth. So he's saying that whatever it may happen, I will not speak untruth, means he will speak the truth. All I ask of you, Mukunda, is to keep still. Don't laugh or grin while I'm talking. At this moment, a European station agent accosted me. He waved a telegram whose import I immediately grasped. Are you running away from home in anger? So there was a European station agent. He found him. He just interrupted over there. He said, "Are you running away from home in anger?" Then he said, "No, I was glad his choice of permitted me to make empathic reply. Not anger, but divinest melancholy was responsible. I knew for my unconventional behavior." The official then turned to Amar. The duel of wits that followed hardly permitted me to maintain the council's stoic gravity. Where is the third boy? The man injected a full ring of authority into his voice. Come on, speak the truth. Sir, I notice you're wearing eyeglasses. Can't you see that we are only two? Amar smiled impudently. I am not a magician. I can't conjure up a third companion. So this person, this agent, they say, well, he told, where's the third boy? Then Amar said, sir, can't you see? We are only two. It's only two of us. The official, noticeably disconcerted by this impertinence, sought a new field of attack. What is your name? I am called Thomas. I am the son of an English mother and converted Christian Indian father. What is your friend's name? I call him Thompson. By the time my inward mirth had reached a zenith, I unceremoniously made for the train, whistling for departure. Amar followed with the official, who was credulous and obliging enough to put us in European compartment. It evidently pained him to think of two half English boys traveling in the section allotted to natives. After his polite exit, I lay back on the seat and laughed uncontrollably. My friend wore an expression of blithe satisfaction of having outwitted a veteran European official. On the platform, I had contrived to read the telegram from my brother. It went thus: three Bengali boys in English clothes running away from home towards Haridwar via Mughal Sarai. Please detain them until my arrival. Ample rewards for your service. So this was written in the telegram. His brother Ananta had sent this telegram to the officials. Amar and I told you not to leave marked timetables in your home. My glance were reproachful. Brother must have found there. So he had written some timetables at home, and his brother might have seen it from there. My friend sheepishly acknowledged the thrust. We halted briefly in Bareilly, where Dwarka Prasad awaited us with telegram from Ananta. My old friend tried valiantly to detain us. I convinced him that our flight had been not been undertaken lightly, as on a previous occasion Dwarka refused my invitation to set forth to the Himalayas. Earlier, he told Dwarka Prasad, but he refused his invitation to Himalaya. And here he also had that telegram that you need not means it should be interrupted. His brother has already sent a telegram to stop them. While our train stood in station that night, and I was half asleep, Amar was awakened by another questioning official. He too fell a victim to the hybrid charms of Thomas and Thompson. The train bore us triumphantly into a down arrival at Hardwar. The majestic mountain loomed invitingly in distance. We dashed through the station and entered the freedom of city crowd. Our first act was to change into native costume, as Ananta had somehow penetrated our European disguise. A premonition of capture weighed on my mind. So now, the first thing what they thought to change their clothes, because his brother Ananta already mentioned over there that they are wearing European clothes. Deeming it advisable to leave Haridwar at once, we bought tickets to proceed north to Rishikesh, a soil long hallowed by feet of many masters. I had already boarded the train while Amar lagged on the platform. He was brought to an abrupt halt by a shout from a policeman. Our unwelcome guardian escorted us to the station bungalow and took charge of our money. He explained courteously that it was his duty to hold us until my elder brother would arrive. Learning that the truant's destination had been the Himalayas, the officer related a strange story. I see you are crazy about saints. You will never meet greater man of God than the one I saw only yesterday. My brother's officer and I first encountered him 5 days ago. We were patrolling by the Gangas on a sharp lookout for certain murderer. Our instruction were to capture him alive or dead. He was known by his masquerading as a sadhu in order to rob pilgrims. A short way before us, we spied a figure which resembled the description of the criminal. He ignored our command to stop. We ran to overpower him. Approaching his back, I wielded my axe with a tremendous force. The man's right arm was severed almost completely from his body. So now he's telling like one of the police officer caught them and said like you wait here till your brother comes. And then he said this strange story he told, like he knew they are going to Himalayas to find some saint. He said, I'll tell you about a crazy I see you're crazy about saints, but I'll tell you a story. I met this saint which I have never seen. So they were in search of a criminal, and it was said that he is wearing a sadhu dress. So they found one of this guy. Uh, they told him to stop, and he was, I think, a short way before us. We spied a figure which resembled the description of the criminal. Whatever the description of the criminal it was, there was the same guy they saw. He ignored his command to stop. So what they did, they ran over him, and the police officer, he had an axe. So in his right arm, he just forcefully put the axe, and it was completely, almost completely from off from his body. Without outcry or any glance at the ghastly wound, the stranger astonishingly continued his swift pace. As we jumped in front of him, he spoke quietly. I am not the murderer you are seeking. So as soon as they did, I think they injured his right arm. It's not written that it was off. So if someone is, when they are injured, they usually they, in pain, they stop, or the body goes weak. But over here, he's saying that that man continued his pace, and he just said quietly, I'm not the murderer you are seeking. I was deeply mortified to see I had injured a person of divine looking sage. Prostrating myself at his feet, I implored his pardon and offered my turban cloth to staunch the heavy spurts of blood. Son, that was just an understandable mistake on your part. The saint regarded me kindly. Run along and don't reapproach yourself. The beloved mother is taking care of me. He pushed his dangling arm into the stump, and lo, it adhered. The blood inexplicably ceased to flow. So when they saw him, the police officer was, he was very feeling very bad, like he had injured a so divine looking sage sadhu, and he has done wrong on his part. So the sadhu said, you just do your work. You were mistaken on your part, which is completely understandable. So now you leave it. The beloved mother is taking care of me. Come to me, yeah, under yonder tree in 3 days, and you will find me fully healed. So he told him, come to him under a yonder tree. They might have been this tree, and you will you'll see me fully healed. Thus, will feel no remorse. Like he was feeling really bad about his action. So he said, after 3 days, you come and then you see me, and you'll not feel bad about your actions. Yesterday, my brother officer and I went eagerly to the designated spot. The sadhu was there and allowed us to examine his arm. It bore no scar or trace of hurt. I am going via Rishikesh to Himalaya solitudes. He blessed us as he departed quickly. I feel that my life has been uplifted through his sanctity. So he's saying, means the police officer was saying that he is going to Rishikesh, to the Himalayas. He blessed us as he departed quickly. I think, sorry, the sadhu said this. The officer concluded with a pious ejaculation. His experience had obviously moved him beyond his usual depth. With an impressive gesture, he handed me a printed clipping about the miracle in the usual garbled manner of the sensational type of newspaper, not missing, alas, even in India. The reporter's version was slightly exaggerated. It indicated that the sadhu had been almost decapitated. Amar and I lamented that we had missed the great yogi who could forgive his persecutor in such Christ-like way. India materially proved for poor for the 2 centuries, yet has an inexhaustible fund of divine wealth. Spiritual skyscrapers may occasionally be encountered by the wayside, even by worldly men like this policeman. So Amar and him, they said that they missed to meet this yogi, who has a person has damaged him so badly and he has forgiven. So he's saying, in the 2 centuries India has been so poor, but when it comes to spiritual divine wealth, it is it is way more ahead. We thank the officer for relieving our tedium with his marvelous story. He was probably intimidating that he was more fortunate than we. He had met an illumined saint without effort. Our earnest search had ended, not at the feet of master, but in Force police station. So the police officer was very happy. He was like he met a saint without efforts, and Our earnest search had ended, not at the feet of master, but in Force police station. So their journey to the Himalayas, it ended in the police station. So near the Himalayas, and yet in our captivity, so far, I told Amar, I felt doubly impelled to seek freedom. Let us slip away when opportunity offers. We can go on the foot of holy Rishikesh. I smiled encouragingly. But my companion had turned pessimist as soon as the stalwart prop of our money had been taken from us. So I think they had money which was taken away. Mukunda wanted to go to at least to the foot of Rishikesh. If we started a trek over such dangerous jungle land, we should finish not in the city of saints but in the stomachs of tiger. Ananta and Amar's brother arrived after 3 days. Amar greeted his relative with affectionate relief. I was unreconciled. Ananta got no more from me than a severe upbraiding. I understand how you feel, my brother spoke soothingly. All I ask of you is to accompany me to Banaras to meet a certain saint and go on to Calcutta to visit your grieving father for a few days. Then you can resume your search here for our master. So, Ananta, what he said, he said, I am completely understand how you're feeling. Uh, he will accompany him to Banaras to meet certain saint. And then he had to go to Calcutta where his father was grieving for few days, means he was worried about his child. And then he said, you can resume your search here for a master. Amar entered the conversation at his point to declaim any intention of returning Haridwar with me. He was enjoying the familial warmth, but I knew I would never abandon the quest for my guru. Our party entrained for Banaras. There I had a singular and instant response to my prayer. A clever scheme had been pre-arranged by Ananta. Before seeing me at Haridwar, he had stopped in Banaras to ask certain scriptural authority to interview me later. Both the Pandit and his son had promised to undertake my dissuasion from the path of sannyasi. So he thought, in Banaras, he had this Pandit and his son to do some rituals to, means, distract him or to move away from the path of sannyasi. Ananta took me to their home. The son, a young man of ebullient manner, greeted me in the courtyard. He engaged me in a lengthy philosophic discourse, professing to have a clairvoyant knowledge of my future. He discountenanced my idea of being a monk. You will meet continual misfortune and be unable to find God if you insisted on deserting your ordinary responsibilities. You cannot work your past karma without worldly experience. So, this saint was clairvoyant and now if you're trying to do something and if someone stops you, how will you feel? First of all, you will feel very lot of anger towards that person who is stopping you from doing things, and then you will if that person gives you an alternatives or gives you another direction, then you will be thinking like he is doing things just for to get me distracted. So this was what going in the mind of Mukunda. Now this saint, what he said, that you will continuously meet misfortune, you'll not be able to find God because you have to work out your past karma. You cannot work out your past karma without worldly experience. Krishna's immortal word rose to my lips in reply. Even he with the worst of karma, who ceaselessly meditates on me, quickly loses the effect of his past bad action. becoming a high souled being. He soon attains a perennial peace. Arjuna knows this for certain. The devotee who puts his trust in me never perishes. So, now what he said to this saint when he said you have to work out your karma, past karma, he said, like, Krishna has said this to Arjun, like, when you meditate, you keep on meditating and you become a high souled being. So, your past karmas are worked out. And over here, this line, uh, becoming a high souled being, he soon attains perennial peace, complete peace. Arjuna knows this for certain. The devotee who puts his trust on me never perishes. So, the devotee who has tremendous trust on God, there's no such karma for them. But the forceful prognostication of the young man had slightly shaken my confidence. With all the fervor of my heart, I prayed silently to God. Please solve my bewilderment and answer me right here and now. If thou dost desire me to lead the life of renunciate or a worldly man, I noticed. The words of the sadhu actually shook his confidence. Maybe he answered him back with this very nice lines of Krishna and Arjun, but somewhere deep inside his confidence was shaken. So he just asked God, like, God, I'm in confusion, please guide me. Do you want me to lead a life of renunciation or like a worldly man? I noticed a sadhu of noble countenance standing just outside the compound of the Pandit house. Evidently, he had overheard the spirited conversation between the self styled clairvoyant and myself, for the stranger called me to his side. I felt a tremendous power flowing from his calm eyes. Son, don't listen to that uh, ignoramus. In response to your prayer, the Lord tells me to assure you that your sole path in this life is that of the renunciate. With astonishment as well as gratitude, I smiled happily at this decisive message. Come away from that man, the ignoramus, who was calling me from the courtyard. My saintly guide raised his hand in blessing and slowly departed. That sadhu is just as crazy as you are. It was hoary headed Pandit who made his charming observation. He and his son were gazing at me lugubriously. I heard that he too has left his home in vague search of God. So, when he had this question, then out of nowhere, one sadhu appeared and he said, like, your life, your individual path is that of renunciation. So he said, don't listen to this man. He is all crazy. He's crazy as you are. And he himself has left his home in search of God. I turned away. To Ananta, I remarked that I would not engage in further discussion with our host. My brother agreed to an immediate departure. We soon entrained for Calcutta. So, this is his elder brother Ananta. Over here, this is a picture. And this is last solstice festival celebrated at by Yukteswar in December 1935. I think the pictures are somewhere back and forth and it's not there in the book. Yeah. Okay. So over here you can see he's saying his guru Yukteswar Giri is sitting over here. He's sitting on the right. in the large courtyard of his hermitage in Serampore. Mr. Detective, how did you discover I had fled away with two companions? I vented my livingly curiosity to Ananta during our homeward journey. He smiled mischievously. Now he's asking his brother, how did you find that I have left home? So he's saying, yeah, this chapter is a little bit big. So let's see how much we can cover, or else we'll be covering it in two parts. So, at your school, I found that Amar had left his classroom and had not returned. I went to his home the next morning and unearthed a marked timetable. So, over there, Amar had marked a timetable. Amar's father was just leaving by carriage and was talking to the coachman. My son will not ride with me to his school this morning. He has disappeared. The father mourned. I heard from a brother coachman that your son and two other dressed in European suits boarded the train at Havra station. The man stated they made present of leather shoes to the cab driver. So what they did, their leather shoes, they gave it to the cab driver. Thus, I had three clues: the timetable, the trio boys, and the English clothing. So those were the three clues which got him. I was listening to Ananta's disclosure with mingled mirth and vexation. Our generosity to the coachman has been slightly misplaced. Of course, I rushed to send telegrams to station officials in all cities, which Amar had underlined in the timetable. He had checked Bareilly, so I wired your friend Dwarka there. After inquiries at our Calcutta neighborhood, I learned that cousin Jatinda had been absent one night but had arrived home the following morning in European garb. I sought him out and invited him to dinner. He accepted, quite disarmed by my friendly manner. On the way, I led unsuspecting to police station. He was surrounded by several officers whom I had previously selected for their ferocious appearance. Under the formidable gaze, Jatinda agreed to account for his mysterious conduct. So he said, his elder brother said that he had three clues: the timetable, and someone telling about three boys they have gone, the English clothing. And then he said, like, he came to know about with Dwarka also, and his cousin Jatinda was also missing one day before. So, like this, he connected the dots and he came to know that they had planned to leave the house. I started for Himalayas in a buoyant spiritual mood, he explained. Inspiration filled me at the prospect of meeting the masters, but as soon as Mukunda said, during our ecstasies in the Himalaya caves, tigers will be spellbound and sit around us like tame pussies, my spirit froze. Beads of perspiration formed on my bow. What then? I thought. If the vicious nature of the tigers be not changed through the power of a spiritual trance, shall they treat us with the kindness of house cats? In my mind's eye, I already saw myself compulsory inmate of some tiger's stomach, entering there not at once the whole body, but installments of its several parts. So, he said, like, in his mind it was coming like, if they have gone to Himalayan caves and the tigers were around, what if they did not change their mind, if they were not like domestic cats, so will they have eaten them? Okay, I think these lines are said by Jatinda. Yeah, Jatinda agreed to account for his mysterious conduct. I started for Himalayas in a buoyant spiritual mood. Yes, because when they were talking about the tigers, Like they when they'll sit for meditation, the tigers will come tamed, and they'll be like domestic cats. So a thought came to Jatinda, like, what if their minds doesn't change? If the tiger's mind doesn't change, then what they'll do? They'll eat them, either the whole body or they'll eat in installments. So my anger at Jatinda's vanishment was evaporated in laughter. Earlier he was very angry, like, where has he vanished? But when he heard this, he was in laughter. The hilarious sequel on the train was worth all the anguish he had caused me. I must confess to a slight feeling of satisfaction. Jatinda too had not escaped an encounter with the police. Ananta, you are born slave slith hound. My glance of amusement was not without some exasperation, and I shall tell Jatinda I am glad he was prompted by no mood of treachery, as it appeared, but only the prudent instinct of self-preservation. So he said, like, Jatinda left the trip because of, he wanted to protect himself. At home in Calcutta, father touchingly requested me to curb my removing feet until at least the completion of my high school studies. In my absence, he had lovingly hatched a plot by arranging for saintly Pandit Swami Kebal Ananda to come regularly to the house. The sage will be your Sanskrit tutor, my parents announced confidently. So, in this chapter, one more thing I've seen, it is everything about spiritual journey, but you have seen his family has been so supportive and understanding. Like mother writing that letter about his how his journey will go, giving him the amulet, and over here when he has left the house to go to the Himalayas. Then, when he came back, his father arranged for a Pandit who will be giving him Sanskrit tutor. Means, some way or the other, that spiritual light, he is nourished and nurtured by that spiritual light. His ultimate quest is to find a spiritual guru. But, everything has got a timeline. So, you can say it was not his time. So, but what about that hunger of spiritual energy? So, for that, his father arranged a Sanskrit tutor. He was a Pandit, Swami Kebal Ananda. Father hoped to satisfy my my religious earnings by instructions from a learned philosopher. But the tables were subtly turned. My new teacher, far from offering intellectual arbitraries, feigned the embers of my God aspiration. Unknown to father, Swami Kebal Ananda was an exalted disciple of Lahiri Mahasya. The peerless guru had possessed thousands of disciples, silently drawn to him by irresistibility of the divine magnetism. I learned later that Lahiri Mahasya has often characterized Kebal Ananda as rishi or illumined sage. So his father did not have much knowledge about this Sanskrit tutor. He thought he is a Sanskrit tutor and he will teach him. But he did not know that he was one of the disciples of Larry Masya. And he has a and this line I learned later that Larry Masya had often characterized Kebal Ananda as a rishi or illumined sage. Luxuriant curls framed from my tutor. Luxuriant curls framed from my tutor's handsome face. His dark eyes were guileless with the transparency of a child. All the movement of his slight body were marked by restful deliberation, ever gently, ever gentle and loving. He was firmly establishing in the infinite consciousness. Many of our happy hours together were spent in deep Kriya meditation. Kebal Ananda was noted authority on the ancient Shastra or sacred books. His erudition had earned him the title of Shastri Mahasya, by which he was usually addressed. But my progress in Sanskrit scholarship was unnoteworthy. I sought every opportunity to forsake for Prosac grammar and to talk of yoga and Lahari Masya. My tutor obliged me one day by telling me something of his own life with the master. So he came there to teach Sanskrit, but most of the time they would be talking about, they spend time in Kriya meditation. They would talk about yoga, about Lahari Masya. So he's telling one day by telling me something of his own life with the master. He said, rarely fortunate, I was able to remain near Lahari Masya for 10 years. His Banaras home was my nightly goal of pilgrimage. The Guru was always present in a small front parlor on the first floor. As he sat in lotus posture on a backless wooden seat, his disciple garlanded him in a semicircle. His eyes sparkled and danced with joy of the divine. They were ever half closed, peering through the inner telescopic orb in the sphere of eternal bliss. He seldom spoke at length. Occasionally his gaze would focus on a student in need of help. Healing words poured then like an avalanche of light. An indescribable peace blossomed within me at the master's glance. I was permeated with this fragrance as though from a lotus infinity. To be with him, even without exchanging a word for days, was experience which changed my entire being. If any invisible barrier rose in the path of my concentration, I would meditate at Guru's feet. There, the most tenuous states came easily within my grasp. Such perceptions eluded me in the presence of lesser teacher. The master was a living temple of God, whose secret doors were open to all disciples through devotion. So he's saying that whenever any barrier, invisible barrier, rose in the path of his concentration, invisible barriers, like you can say, any restlessness or thinking about things which have not occurred. So he used to just meditate at the Guru's feet, and all those things would just disappears disappeared. The master was a living temple of God, whose secret doors were open to all disciples through devotion. This is a very beautiful line. Yeah, let me share it. This line. The master was a living temple of God. Secret doors were open to all disciples through devotion. Lahari Masya was no bookish interpreter of the scriptures. Effortlessly, he dipped into the divine library. Foam of words, spray of thoughts gushed from the fountain of his omniscience. He had the wondrous claviers which unlocked the profound philosophical science embedded ages ago in Vedas. If asked to explain the different planes of consciousness mentioned in the ancient text, he would smilingly assent. So he was not there to describe book interpretation of scriptures. He just means, very beautifully over here it has described. He dipped into the divine library, and his words were foam of words, spray of thoughts gushed like a fountain of his omniscience. So, if asked to explain the different planes of consciousness mentioned in the ancient text, he would smilingly assent. I will undergo those states and presently tell you what I perceive. So he would say, if someone asked the different planes of consciousness, then he said, I would undergo those states and tell you what I perceive. He was thus diametrically unlike the teachers who commit scripture to memory and then give forth unrealized abstractions. Yeah. So, please expound the holy stanzas as the meaning occurs. The taciturn Guru often gave his instruction to the nearby disciple. I will guide your thoughts that the right interpretation be uttered. In this way, many of Lahiri Mahasya's perception came to be recorded with the voluminous commentaries by various students. The master never counseled slavish belief. Words are only shells, he said. Win conviction of God's presence through your own joyous contact in meditation. So he said it was his belief that words are only shells. If you want to feel God, if you want to win God, you just need to contact Him during meditation. No matter what the disciples' problem, the Guru advised Kriya Yoga for its solution. The yogic key will not lose its efficiency when I am no longer present in the body to guide you. This technique cannot be bound, filled, and forgotten in the manner of theoretically inspirations. Continue ceaselessly on your path to liberation through Kriya, whose power lies in practice. I myself consider Kriya the most effective device of salvation through self effort ever to be evolved in man's search for the infinite. Kebalananda concluded with this earnest testimony. Through its use, the omnipotent God, hidden in all men, became visibly incarnated in the flesh of Lahiri Masya and a number of his disciples. A Christ like miracle by Lahiri Masya took place in Kebalananda presence. My saintly tutor recounted the story one day, his eyes removed from Sanskrit text before us. So, as you can see, his Sanskrit tutor only used to talk about meditation, Kriya Yoga, Lahiri Mahasya. So now he's telling another story. A blind disciple, Ramu, aroused my active pity. Should he have no light in his eyes when he faithfully served our master, in whom the divine was fully blazing? One morning I sought to speak to Ramu, but he sat for patient hours fanning the Guru with handmade palm leaf pankha. When the devotee finally left the room, I followed him. Ramu, how long have you been blind? From my birth, sir. Never have my eyes ever been blessed with the glimpse of sun. Our omnipotent Guru can help you. Please make a supplication. The following days, Ramu diffidently approached Lahiri Masya. The disciple felt almost ashamed to ask that physical wealth to be added to his spiritual superb depths. Master, the illuminator of the cosmos is in you. I prayed you to bring him his light into my eyes that I perceive the sun lesser glow. Ramu, someone has connived to put me in a difficult position. I have no healing power. Sir, the infinite one within you can certainly heal. That is indeed different, Ramu. God's limit is nowhere. He who ignites the star and the cells of flesh with mysterious life, effulgence can surely bring luster to vision into your eyes. The master touched Ramu's forehead at a point between the eyebrows. Keep your mind concentrated there and frequently chant the names of the Prophet Rama for 7 days. The splendor of the sun shall have a special down for you. Lo, in 1 week it was so. For the first time, Ramu beheld the fair face of nature, the omniscient one hand unerringly directed his disciple to repeat the name Rama. The omniscient one had unerringly directed his disciple to repeat the name Rama, adored by him above all the saints. Ramu's faith had devotionally plowed soil in which Guru's powerful seed of permanent healing sprouted. Kebal Ananda was silent for a moment, then paid a further tribute to his Guru. It was evident in all miracles performed by Lahiri Masya that he never allowed the ego principle to consider itself a causative force. Be by perfection of resistless surrender, the master enabled the prime healing power to flow freely through him. The numerous bodies which were spectacularly healed through Lahiri Masya eventually had to feed the flames of cremation, but the silent spiritual awakening he effected, the Christ like disciples he fashioned are imperishable miracles. I never became a Sanskrit scholar. Kebal Nanda taught me divine syntax. So he talked about this disciple Ramu who was blind. So one day he asked the Guru to bless him with eyesight, so that he can see the sun, feel the warmth of the sun. So he just put his hand in his forehead and said, like you say, Rama Rama for 7 days. That means a week. And yes, this was a permanent healing which he has seen, like so many miracles this guru had performed. Then he said, Kunda is saying, I never became a Sanskrit scholar because he taught, and Kebalananda taught me diviner syntax. So this was chapter 4, which is finished. Now, tomorrow we'll be doing chapter 5. The perfume saint displays his wonder. Isn't it amazing? Means when I am seeing, I think this is the third time I'm reading this book. And, every time it gives a different experience. So, twice I have read it on my own, and this is the third time I'm sharing my experiences with you. And since the day I've started book study, I've been seeing day one, day two, day three. Something is changing, some energy shift is happening. Like, what most of the time happens, like days where you're not meditating, you have a lot of thoughts going on, mind is kind of chaotic. But I'm observing, like, I have started again reading this book. The mind is very still, and you are means what we say, no, like I'm not the emotions, I'm not the mind, I'm a soul, I'm connected with God. Those things are happening practically, it is manifesting. So I would suggest you all to maintain a diary, your spiritual diary, where you can write, like what are you observing, what are you feeling, what experiences you're having. Because usually these things are very not everyone will understand. Only people of your vibration can understand. So it'll be better if you start writing there, so that you have somewhere you're sharing your thoughts and emotions. So thank you for watching the book study session. Have a great day. Namaste.